Well, hello and excuse me. Hello and welcome to the Power of Your Mind podcast. I'm Victoria Gallagher, your host. Each week, I share tools and strategies about the law of attraction, manifestation, hypnosis, affirmations, meditations, all kinds of things to help you to rewire your mindset and achieve success. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the Power of Your Mind podcast so that you never miss an episode. And if you find value in the show, then please leave a review, share it with a friend, or download my Believe Hypnosis app, which is your resource for over 1,000 powerful hypnosis sessions to help you manifest your dreams and your goals. And for those of you who are new here, I'm Victoria Gallagher. I'm a best-selling author of Practical Law of Attraction and a few other books, and a hypnotherapist for over 25 years, digital creator, speaker, entrepreneur, and I specialize in helping business professionals use their minds to manifest success and abundance through powerful and practical techniques. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Today, today is episode number 379, and today's guest is Debbie Dobbins. She's going to be talking about your inner billionaire with a B, and she is a force to be reckoned with. After building multiple successful businesses and making millions teaching abundance, Debbie faced an unexpected reality. She found herself, even after all of that, broke on food stamps and unfortunately battling cancer. But that moment did not define her. It didn't break her. It actually did the opposite. It activated her. And she tuned into her feminine energy, her fierce intuition, and radical reinvention. And she healed her body, she rebuilt her wealth, and she redefined success. And she is known as the Queen of Magic. She's lived many lives: millionaire, entrepreneur, cancer thriver, spiritual teacher, and now a best-selling author of Your Inner Billionaire. And her story is more than inspiring. I only have inspiring guests on the show, so you know she's inspiring. And her story is kind of like a blueprint for what is possible when women reclaim their power, especially in their second act. So if you are dreaming of starting a business, manifesting more income and abundance, and you are craving freedom in your body and your bank account, Debbie's message is going to light a fire in you. And it's never, ever, ever too late. You're not too much, you're not too old, you're just right, and you're right on time. So let's dive in. Oh, and for more information about Debbie, you can find her on her website, thedebbiedobsons.com. And we're also going to talk about a couple other ways that you can connect with her and get into her world. So welcome to the show, Debbie.
You. I'm so excited. What a lovely introduction. And I just feel like we're so simpatico already. I mean, everything you talk about and share about, from the hypnosis to the power of attraction, I'm already experiencing and loving that in my life for decades. And that's why I feel like it's going to feel like a little girl talk here. I'm so excited.
I love it. That's why I love doing this podcast because, I get to, gives me an opportunity to meet so many people like you that have enriched their own lives, that are enriching other people's lives. But it is very much um, you know, we're kind of like in sync and aligned. And I like talking to people that can give me new insights. That was one of the reasons why I started this show,
Yeah.
was because I wanted to learn. And I felt like, well, whatever I'm learning about, let's just share that with the world. And I think you have so much wisdom to share with our audience. So thank you so much for everything that you've been through
Yeah.
to get you to this point where you can share your story. And so, getting talking about your story, let's just break into that. Tell me a little bit about what led you to this moment, wherever you want to start. There's so many different starting points, I'm sure.
Yeah.
um,
Actually, we talked about it just briefly about our connection with hypnosis, and I was sharing with you in 1996, I became a hypnotist in Southern California. And believe me when I say that was 40 years ago. And so I've been on this metaphysical new thought journey for over 40 years when it was woo woo.
yeah.
Right now, everything's la la la. I might have write a new book though called "Coming Out of the Woo Woo Closet" because women still, I hear this all the time from clients. They're in the C-suite or they're nurses or whatever, and they still feel like they want to follow their passion, but the woo woo is keeping them back. So now we're much more open to it. And so my journey started years and years and years ago, and I've taught abundance and been an abundance coach. And it wasn't until literally because I was all about the mindset. And what I've discovered and learned, especially after being diagnosed with cancer, because that will bring you to your knees, especially when you're broken on food stamps, is that your body knows everything. Your body, our minds, and this is what I've heard over and over throughout the years, is that I can't get my mind to change and all of, that conversation. But the fact is that it's because it's landed in our body. And especially as women, we so need to understand that. And so when you are stripped from everything, literally, I was in bed, broke, on food stamps, didn't know where the next dime was coming from. And I've created millions, so I knew how to do it, but there wasn't an opportunity when you're flat out on your back.
Yeah.
And it also gave me an opportunity to see what was important. Number one. Number two, one of the things I did for myself during that time was go to a psychic healer. Now, I say that only because she had a near death experience and it was all, it was a God shot that she showed up at a spiritual center, but it really gave me an opportunity to see that there's so much more, even though I know this, to practice it in a different way. And so it just became crystal clear as the years have come and gone since that, which is about 6 years now, that it is all contained in the body. And even when probably the first year after my treatments, I was listening to Joe Dispenza. I
Mm-hmm.
love Joe Dispenza, but he said something, and I talk about my addictions in the book. But when he said that your body's addicted to feelings,
Mm-hmm.
I so understood that. Like I didn't have a label for it before, but then I really understood it. So all of our money stories from the very beginning, from our parents and our spiritual teachings and all of that are downloaded into our body.
Mm-hmm.
So that is where the rubber hit the road for me, is to really begin to understand that this is an inside job with your body as much as it is with your mind, because your body follows or your mind follows what your body's telling it. So that's really the biggest revolution that I've had during this process, because teaching abundance from a mindset is one thing. Really incorporating it into your body is so different. And it's about the feelings and the emotions. And we have plenty of them as women.
Yeah. Oh my God, that makes so much sense. So the way I kind of equate that is through like the vibration. Like your body is
Absolutely. Mhm.
essentially emitting that vibration, and that's why it's so important. I mean, they say that, it is mindset, but the mind essentially and the body are connected.
Right.
Right. And so it makes a lot of sense because you've got to ultimately, this is why so many people, I just have to throw this in there whenever, so many people will want to do these subliminals or they want to fall asleep to their hypnosis and things like that. And I'm always, because subconscious mind's always listening. It's like, yeah, it might actually hear the words, but it doesn't mean anything unless you get it into the realm of the feelings. And
Right.
so you don't feel the words
Right.
when you're sleeping or when you're not hearing them. Anyway.
That's exactly true. And so I imagine the body as an antenna. right? So this is the vibratory frequency. Like I get goosebumps when I talk about it because
Yeah,
this is the vibratory frequency
I
right
just
here.
did too.
It is all those emotions, right? And so we're sending the signal out and we're getting back exactly, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but we're getting exactly what we're putting out.
Yeah.
So we see this image in front of us, which we're literally projecting. Now, I've known that thinking it was coming from here when the reality is it's coming from here. And I take it even a step further now, especially since we can see AI. AI is like, oh, I'm so excited about AI.
Yeah.
And yet there is a scariness to it if people don't really understand it. But this is our AI right here. We
Yeah.
are just AI in this brain
Hmm.
because we programmed it to do whatever we've told it to do based on the emotional frequencies that we get all of our feelings from, age 1 to 8. We download them into the body, then we recreate it. So we're addicted literally to the feelings that are here. And when I finally recognized that, I was so, thank goodness, because then I can feel a different feeling. Because
Yeah.
I would get so frustrated. I'm in the human design, I'm a manifestor generator, which means nothing to me other than I know that that's what it is. But I knew that my level of upset was frustration when things weren't going.
Mm.
So how would I like to feel? Well, you can choose how you want to feel. We have this belief that our feelings, we don't have any control over them. So when I talk about the antenna, the antenna is connected to our nervous system.
Hmm.
So it really is regulating our nervous system. And I think somatic activities have been so, they're bubbling up to the surface because if we begin to recognize that it's our bodies, once we treat our bodies with the control that we have, so that we can make the energy frequencies that we want,
Yeah.
then we get to see what we want. Until we go into that pattern and we're just trying to think our way out of either poverty or lack or any of those things, it's never going to happen because your body still wants to feel the way that it's felt all of your life. That's pattern behavior. And then we keep seeing the same thing over and over. And that's why I'm not a big person of affirmations,
Right.
because to me it's like writing on a chalkboard. Remember, well, I don't know if you study this, but
I
when
do
when
remember.
you're growing up, you read about writing on the chalkboard 500 times, I won't pull Sally's ponytail anymore. Right, by the time the person that did that gets down to the bottom, they're going to go pull her ponytail again.
Right.
It's not a deterrent, and it also doesn't change our mindset. So this is the biggest epiphany that I had. And then to combine it with the feminine energy, because I'm so about feminine energy. I was on the beach in Playa 2 years ago, sitting there just listening to the ocean talk to me because she talks to me all the time. And she says, "You're supposed to wake up the feminine on the planet." And I went, "I don't know who you're talking to, but that's not me."
I love that.
I am the best man for the job. Like I bought into the playbook, the masculine construct playbook,
Yeah.
which I'm not here to debase anybody, but that's the model that we all operate in.
Hmm.
And there is feminine energy, which is connection, communication, emotability, having emotions, and intuition. So when we bring that in, then you can really build that frequency to emit exactly what you want in your life. And then it just shows up.
I think that's really important to dive into because, I mean, so many women who strive for a certain level of success, climbing the corporate ladder or whatever it is, I mean, let's face it. I mean, we were initially, especially if you're, in the 50 plus category, if you're Gen X or above, you were brought up kind of it was a man's world. I mean, my first job, not my first job, but my last job, I was a stockbroker, which was completely like 95% male dominated industry. Now, more and more women are coming to the table but you're kind of taught, you're modeling a certain kind of energy. You're seeing how you have to be, and that doesn't necessarily work. Even for men, could actually benefit from more feminine energy. So how did you like, so you heard it from the ocean. But then like you kind of brushed it off. So how did you decide to embrace that? And then what did you do to embrace that more?
So, given the fact that I really truly have never felt as a woman, I didn't use being a woman as an excuse. And not that I had to strive harder because I just followed the playbook. And the playbook for the masculine energy is drive, force, push,
Yeah.
and burn yourself out, basically.
Mhm.
And so when I actually, it started about 2003, I saw this woman called Sheila Kelly on the Oprah Winfrey Show, and she had a studio called the S Factor. And so what she was teaching was how to dance pole dancing, but more importantly, because everyone goes for the pole and then you stay for the empowerment. What I learned then, and I have, had breadcrumbs my whole life. What I learned then was feminine energy is just, it's about birthing, not birthing babies, but birthing energy,
Mhm.
right? So masculine energy is about building and
Mhm.
feminine energy is about birthing. And so
Mhm.
when you balance the two, because you have to have a building energy, you have to have a doingness involved in your life. But
Yeah.
when you strip away all of the feminine energy and you're only building, then you're pushing so hard. And this is what I see in women all the time, including myself, because I'm a recovering workaholic. And I used to teach abundance from that perspective as well, which I learned after I started really incorporating my feminine energy and allowing abundance to come as opposed to going out and seeking it,
Yeah.
because I can do that too. I'm really good at pushing through. And what I've learned now is that when you balance the two, so you take sacred action, right? But you have to spend time internally. You have to stay quiet in order to listen to the direction that your intuition is giving to you. We all have intuition. We're just not listening to it
Mhm.
because we're so darn busy. So women took on the masculine construct of build and drive and force and do all of that. But then we're also trying to do all the other things with the kids and with the friends and with the keeping of the house and all the things. So this whole notion of we can have everything is wonderful. And it's true, you can. And there is a better way now. What I've learned is that we can begin to organize time. I have a course called Time Bender. You can bend time. Until you learn that, though, you're still going to strive and burn yourself out. And what I've seen from my clients and women in general is that we're just pushing under that masculine energy instead of balancing some of, I mean, I'm going to use the word soft, even though that's really not an accurate description, but finding that softness so
Mhm.
that you can really be congruent with your own frequency and then create from that space, because that's that resonance that will bring whatever it is. It's about that power of attraction, but it really is resonating with that energy so that when you resonate with that, it's just a magnet. It just they connect with one another. So it wasn't an easy choice. I heard it and then I just kept hearing it again, because that's what will happen with your intuition. Once you hear it and you're not listening, it'll keep giving you different suggestions. So I lived in Playa del Carmen all last year, on and off, because I was spending some time in Texas. But it just got me really congruent with where I am, who I am, and the authenticity. Because once again, I say this a lot, and I think people say this a little too much, is that being your authentic self is what the real magic is. So if
Mhm.
you begin to strip away all the layers of all the programming that we have,
Yeah.
then you begin to resonate with who you truly are. And so there wasn't one specific thing that led me to that. It was just a culmination. And yet it started with that voice that said, you're here to wake up the feminine. So now, and the Inner Billionaire is written from that perspective, not using that languaging per se about feminine energy, because anyone can read it. And I have men read it and love it all the time. The fact is, though, it has all these components of what that energy is like. Because when you begin to practice things like gratitude and giving and really resonating with your money story and understanding it, then you begin to open up to the receiving channel. Because what we have done is, with all the stress, because it's a low vibrational energy, it's cut off the receiving channel. And then we wonder why we're not having more of what we want.
Absolutely. That no, it absolutely makes so much sense. That You do need both. And
Mhm.
we have a tendency to want to push and drive and strive and go after it and all of that. But the more powerful aspect of ourselves, even though you do need both, I think the more powerful is that allowing, the receiving, the creator. I believe is, I mean, that is the feminine, the divine, all of that. That's that's part of that feminine energy, and and it's another feeling that's kind of where I think people are addicted to. People, you can get really addicted to, or it's like a when you're up against a wall, and things, maybe haven't manifested yet. It's like, well, I'm not going to sit here and wait for the universe to kick in.
I call that I call that micromanaging the universe.
I guess I'm going to have to do this myself, just like
No,
everything else, right?
that's what I said. That's micromanaging the universe. And I think that is so beautiful because we've learned. I mean, it's a learned behavior. It isn't, that's not our natural state, but
Yeah.
it's really fascinating when I watch that. And so to give you a sort of an example of my own life is I was my part of my stories are that I was a fixer because I was the oldest in the family and whatever. So I was sharing this with a coach, oh, I don't know, it was a couple of years ago. And those words came out of my mouth because we were talking about being addicted and what feelings all these things. And I said, I'm a fixer. And he says, oh, so what you're saying is to the universe, because our language is one of the chapters in the book. It's like we don't really pay attention to our language, which is so key and important because we're talking to ourselves.
Hmm.
So, but he said, so what do you think the universe is going to give you? I'm a problem solver. I'm a fixer,
More
right?
problems to fix.
Problems. Oh, yeah. So it's really fascinating when you begin to delve into your own experiences in your own life in a way as an observer
Yeah.
and say, oh my gosh, I'm creating because I know this. I've known this my whole life. And yet there's just this parts of ourselves that we turn off. We
Hmm.
are in denial about, I guess, where you're not really paying attention until that's why I'm such a big proponent of having coaches or having support groups to work with them because we can't do this on our own. We
Hmm.
just can't see ourselves as clearly as we would like to. We don't, there's not an emotional mirror that you can hold up to yourself and say, oh, yeah, you've been saying forever that you're a fixer and you're a problem solver. So, of course, that's what you're going to get. And so I think it's so clear these days for me is that if I'm not also seeking help from other places, meaning I'm not talking about therapy, I'm talking about coaching and I'm talking about groups that support you in realizing and seeing clearly your divine essence, because we are all these beautiful spiritual divine entities that are just here having these lovely experiences on this thing called planet Earth, and we're all the same. We're all one. So if
Yeah.
we're all one, why am I looking at this person that I say I don't like or doesn't do the things that I would do and then calling that wrong? Maybe I need to reflect why I'm putting that out to see that even. So it's so beautiful to really just begin to look at ourselves. And if you can do it as an observer, I crack myself up more about watching my own behavior than anybody else because I look and say, oh, so that's why you're getting that result. Do you want to
Oh,
change that?
yeah.
Yes, I do. Mhm.
Well, and it's just so interesting too because we come up with these excuses as to why it's okay right now for me to just go ahead and keep putting this message out to the universe. Like this is an exception to the rule, as if the universe is going to be, making making oh, it's okay for you to feel this way because, you are sick or you were taken advantage of or like all the
100%. Yeah.
it's it's like we only do the work, the inner work, when it's convenient,
Yes.
when it
Yes.
feels like, okay, today I'm going to manifest. But as soon as something actually comes along to challenge you, and that thing that's coming to challenge you is from the place that you're working on
Mhm.
healing from, and it has to come up in order for you to heal it, right?
Yep. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and then if you just don't, if you keep doing the same thing, you're going to keep getting the same result.
Otherwise, insanity. I love that too, because one of the things that often have people that are beginning the journey with me early on. So they'll be in a group, because I mostly only do group coaching, that they'll be in a group and everybody's on a different path and they're on a, going in whatever direction. And so we have this thing naturally in ourselves to compare, right? That's,
Mhm.
we would compare. Marie Forleo says it's compare Schlager. I love that. So what she says is, or what it happens is, we start to begin to say, oh, that's not available for me. Whatever's happening for Sally over there is not available for me. That's one conversation. The other conversation is, I feel like I'm being tested. Like I
Mhm.
hear that all the time. And I say this so clearly. Nobody is testing us. There is no testing going on. It's just a vibrational frequency. So now this is an opportunity, as you said, when we're going along our path. And, an example, I want to be more patient today. And then, of course, every person that's going to be on your last nerve shows up in your life. Oh, the universe is testing me, or God's testing me, or the devil's testing me, all of that. There's no testing. What you're doing is you're reorganizing every beingness of who you are. And so your ego, the one that's the program up here, is going, no, we're not doing any of that. So let me keep giving you the things that I've given you in the past that you're going to see, so that we can keep safe and in the same stationary place. As you said, doing the same and a different day, and you're going to get the same result. So I think that's really fascinating. One of the things that I tell people is, you're never being tested. You're just in a frequency. And so now how do you want to change that frequency? And that's all done through emotions and feelings, and creating all of that different frequency so that you see something different. I just find it fascinating that people will say that all the time. The other thing that I wanted to share is that when you were talking about um, going down a certain path and our excuses, like, our excuses only are important to us.
Yeah.
They're not important to anybody else. So I've
Yeah.
had some really silly excuses. One was, I was supposed to move across country and I kept using this excuse that I had a big giant piano that I couldn't move. I'm like, that's the dumbest excuse ever. You look back at it, I go, whoa, you really believe that? But when I was starting my journey on becoming an abundance teacher, I took a course called Financial Freedom. And I was sitting there, and at that point in my life, I had almost a $500,000 IRS lien for some things that I had done in my youth. And I'm in this class, and people are talking about their little $5,000 debts and this problem with their money and that problem. So I'm sitting there going, well, my problem is way bigger than your problem, right?
Right.
And I said these words literally, they came across my lips to the teacher that was facilitating it. I said, you know what? I could cure cancer faster than I could get rid of this IRS lien. And she looked at me. She was one of the most lovely people on the planet. And I know she didn't say these words, but these are my favorite words now. Basically, she said, in a very nice spiritual way, get over yourself. And
Yes.
that's what I write about in the first chapter, is that we have to get over our own excuses. And if it has to come out that way, because that's how I heard it, I was really upset with her at the time. And then I went on to release that lien in a magical way, literally a magical way. And it's about making the decision. So whatever our excuses are, if we decide we're going to make a decision that's different, we just go in the pathway of the decision. And so you're right. We make our excuses and they're only ours, and we get to let them go if we want to.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about your book. So your book is called Your Inner Billionaire. So what inspired that to be the title of your book, and what does that really mean?
So I have been searching this prosperity course, not the path, forever. And I was thinking about this morning, the first thing I ever went to, I think, was Harv Eckert's Millionaire Mind. So
Hmm.
back in the day, that's probably 30 plus years ago. So back then, a millionaire was like a big deal,
Yeah.
right? So I often say to people now, the word billionaire is just because of inflation.
Yeah.
I wanted a title. It actually, my very first working title on that was Your Inner Millionaire. And
Hmm.
then I said, no, because anybody can be a millionaire these days. I mean, literally, if you live in California, you basically have to be. And so I wanted to have something that was a stretch, because what I know about our minds too is if we make a intention or set an intention that's very high, that's very big, I call it a blue sky idea, that this little AI brain up here gets confused. It's like, oh, I can't figure out how to do that. That's never our job. The how is not our job. The what is our job. And so it was just something that downloaded to me, as put it, Your Inner Billionaire. And it's not about being a billionaire. I was watching something on Harvey Levin, Justin Bieber this weekend.
Uh-huh.
And Justin Bieber, he kept saying throughout the piece, Justin Bieber has earned between a half a billion and $1 billion. And he's like the most unhappy person on the planet, and he's broke. So that just goes to my point about the book. It's an
Yeah.
inside job. And
Yeah.
so if you feel like an inner billionaire, if you
Yeah.
feel that, your outside world will begin to replicate that, whether it's $1 billion in your bank or it's just the lifestyle that you would create if you had that. As I said, um, Justin Bieber does not have a happy life, and he's got
Right.
all this money. It isn't the money that makes you happy, it's the emotions, but you can create those now. You don't have to wait till something shows up to actually feel that way.
Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the things that so many people, they think that, once I have the money or once I have this, then I'm going to be happy. But all the things that you think are going to make you happy, they're not going to change your mind, your state. It might give you like temporary satisfaction, but it's that new car smell, that just wears off, and it's the same thing. You have to make yourself feel the way that you think that you want to
Correct.
feel as a result of those things. So that's really, um, and I think too, just the word billionaire. I mean, um, anybody so many people, like, they want a lot of money, like being a millionaire or a billionaire, because they really think that they have to have so much money in order to do all the things. But if you actually sat down, you wrote down all the things that you really want, you don't even need to be, that rich to have that lifestyle. I mean, it's like I look at my lifestyle right now and I think, like, what would actually change? What am I actually going to do differently? Having X amount more dollars in my bank account. And it would look pretty close to the same. I would just have more money. Um, but I think it's also, to achieve that kind of status, that kind of wealth. I mean, you've got to have a mission. You've got to be like, your mission has to go beyond yourself. If you're going to need that kind of money. And I think most people's mission is only to take care of their own self, or maybe their family. It doesn't kind of go beyond that. Anyway, I sort of wandered off into,
Yeah, but it's true. And it's about how you want to feel. So
yeah,
that's sort of the very beginning of the book, is just to say, how do you want to feel in your life? So imagine that you have whatever you think you desire. It could be, I travel around the world, I have the big mansion, I have the supercar. How does that make you feel? I actually do. So everything in the book it's like a mini seminar is what it is.
mm-hmm.
And so I talk about mini experiences,
Yeah,
right? So you can have a mini experience of something that you say you want to experience in your life right here today,
yeah,
literally. Like
yeah.
one of the things I'm looking forward to do right now is become a builder in my community, because we need that. And so there's a development right around the corner from me. And so my mini experience when I was giving the course this last 12 weeks was to go to that development when nobody's there and just walk through the houses
Mm-hmm.
as the contractor with that
Mm-hmm.
in mind. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just, we have to be in, if you like a certain car, go test drive it. What we don't do as humans generally is we're just looking at other people's lives saying, that's what I want, and then not realizing that we can experience all the feelings that we would have with that life right here, right now. And once you begin to open that, what I call a portal into those experiences, your body starts sending those frequencies out. And then all these, as Deepak Chopra says, synchrodestinies start happening. I mean, things start opening up and you just go, how did that person show up in my life? And how did this experience happen? So it's just, I love the whole idea of the law of attraction and abundance and congruencies, because they just bring so much magic into our lives.
They really,
I get so excited.
yeah, no, they really do. When we were talking about AI too, I think AI is such a perfect representation of how the law of attraction works, because it's like, it's all about these prompting, is all about giving it more details and being more
Right.
specific. And, when you put out something vague into the AI, whatever it is, if it's a art, if it's a um, something you're writing or whatever it is, and then it spits something back out at you and you're like, oh, this is junk. Well, it's the same way as when we're thinking
Absolutely.
something.
It's a great metaphor. I'm going to use that because that really truly is the reason we don't have, a lot of people don't have what they want is because they don't even know what they want.
Yeah,
And then if they do say they know what they want, they're not specific enough. So
right.
as you said, it's so clear. I love AI. And if you give it a crummy prompt, it's going to give you a crummy response. Same
Yeah.
thing with the
It
universe.
really is. It's like
100%.
the perfect way to explain how law of
Yeah,
attraction works.
I
Uh,
love that.
and the other thing too, when you just said, we're not really clear on what we want, don't you think down deep inside people, like it's intuitive, like we know what we want, but we're just not willing to either, admit that because of the internal work that would be required to bring ourselves to be the person that we would need to be in order to have what we truly want. I mean, that's just my opinion
Yeah, yeah.
on it. It's just like people they actually do know what they want. They won't admit what they want because it will require them to become the person who is in alignment with having that.
Oh, so many layers there, what you just said, because Marianne Williamson's great quote about, we're not afraid of our success. We're not afraid of our failure. We're afraid of our successes. And I say in the beginning of all my courses and in the book, if you want what you say you want, you have to become a different person. In other words, we cannot receive what we say we want when we're paying attention to what we don't want, because that's the problem. But if we continue down that path, we will keep getting what we have. So, in order to get something different or to see something different, we have to change who we are. And that is the part where the ego comes in and says, nope, this is the safe space. Let's not go there. So, to completely become another person, I am nowhere even close to the person that I was even 5 years ago, because I've had to construct everything about me. And I don't mean my outside, I mean my insides, because it's about your insides. And you're right. People do not have, I don't think they have an understanding. When I say billionaire, I no more want to be a billionaire than me personally than fly to the moon. Why? Because I know the infrastructure that is involved in doing that.
Yeah.
Like, I've been in business so many years. And yet at the same time, I mean, you don't be, I could have a best-selling book, but I don't think I'd be a billionaire from it, like with the royalties. There is infrastructure when you have billions, that there are people that you have to work with, and then you have to pay attention to, all of the support for that. And it's not something that's simple. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean that it's hard. It's just not simple. And so when you say that people are afraid, or they're really not sure they want to do the things that are involved, you're right, they don't.
Yeah.
And there are people out there, and I see that the leveling up of the world, I mean, as far as their consciousness is, they're beginning to understand. And it's with beautiful podcasts like what you have, that you're sharing that information so that women, especially, are grabbing onto that, going, oh my gosh, there is a different way. There is a way that supports and is congruent with who I am. Because if we truly find that balance of masculine and feminine, we are unstoppable.
Mm.
100% limitless, infinite, unstoppable. So it's just a matter of really looking at where you are now, where would you like to be, and then who is the person that you are becoming along the way, because this person that's out here that you say you want to be is not the person and the energy that you're living in today. It's impossible, otherwise you would be seeing something else. That's the
Abs-
resonance.
Yeah,
So
no,
I agree
absolutely.
with you 100%. People, I don't know if they're afraid or they just don't want to put in the effort, but the energy has to shift.
I agree. I think they just don't, well, I think they don't want to take responsibility, which is another part of your book that you talk
Yeah,
about taking radical responsibility.
right.
So
Yeah,
talk about that a little bit and, how that actually was one of the catalysts that helped
yeah.
you to transform your own life.
So I actually I have a podcast called Radical Responsibility Revolution, and
Oh,
that
I
is
love it.
because I see people pointing fingers about why they are where they're at. I don't
Yeah.
care what your reason. It could be your relationship with your spouse, it could be with your children, it could be your financial situation. And I remember, I think I was in my 20s and I went to some seminar and the guy stood up in front of the room. It was called Lifespring or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, okay, so he's up there and he says, all right. I mean, I'm just a young pup at that point, and he says, everything that is happening in your life, you created it. And I went, you know what? I don't. When for me, when I hear truth, I know it. Like I
Yeah.
didn't argue. I didn't argue in my mind. I just went, oh my god, I think he's right. And then he went on to explain it. Even
It's
if
such
you
a
had a car
wake-up call
accident,
for when
right?
people finally get that.
Right. Right. And so that's, I mean, from that moment in my life, I knew that was the truth. Now, living the truth and knowing the truth are two different things.
Mm-hmm.
So I started on a path and I've been on this, interesting spiritual self-improvement, metaphysical, whatever kind of path you want to call it, all my life. And yet knowing the core of that was I am responsible for every single thing that happens in my life. That's a big, big, big responsibility, really. I
It
mean,
is.
it's the good news and it's the bad news.
Yeah.
And, throughout my life, I would love to blame other experiences and all of that. But the fact is that I am responsible. And when we accept that 100%, everybody on the planet gets the same uh, gift, if you will, that we then can be the people that we want to see show up in the world. And so I just feel like the world right now, there's a lot of finger pointing
Yeah.
on all different levels. And when who is it? Stephen Covey says in the Seven Habits, seek first to understand, then to be understood. Well, we
Mm-hmm.
do need to understand ourselves, but it begins with that process of looking outwards and saying, okay, this isn't the life that I'm seeing that I really want. I'm understanding everybody around me, but I'm not blaming them. They're here to show me and reflect back to me what I'm thinking. So that really is what it boils down to is if you don't like something that you see in your life, look in here, look at
Yeah.
yourself and say, yes, I'm creating this because we're creating everything in our lives. And I know that's really hard for a lot of people because they weren't raised that way, but I really know that that is my one core truth and belief is that we create every single thing in our lives. It's kind of hard sometimes when I think that I created my cancer. And yet I know that that was as a result of things that I needed to learn. I mean, there's been so many things along the way that were not particularly enjoyable in my life, but I know that they are there to be of service to me so that I can be more revealing of who I truly am.
Yeah. And I'm just gonna speak to one aspect of that, because there are things that happen in the world, fires, wars, earthquakes, that people get mixed up, in that energy. And, for me personally, I don't feel like they created the earthquake or the fire or the war but whatever it is that they have experienced at that time and they were part of that, that's an event that happened, and we have the choice. We can, on how we can respond to those events. So are we going to respond by, continuing to say, well, this bad thing happened to me, and so I can't get ahead in my life? Or are we going to respond in a way that says, okay, that was an event, it's horrible, and I'm going to choose to move on and have a better life?
It's the story that we create around it. There was um, I heard this gentleman speaking, I think it was a couple of years ago, that he was on some show I was watching, and he was talking to a therapist about how he got hit by a semi truck. He was out doing something, and he would always say his sentence would be, I got hit by a truck and I almost died. And so he kept that story and he perpetuated. This is what we do is we have our money stories and all of our other stories from the experiences, like you just said. Here's an event, here's an experience. How I respond to that is my choice. So he's in this therapist's office, and the therapist says, yeah, you got hit by a truck. And he goes, no, I got hit by a truck and I almost died. And he goes, well, you're sitting in front of me. So it's really how we interpret the story or the experience. And so it was just an epiphany for him. And we all get this opportunity. Byron Katie does Loving What Is, that book.
Hmm.
And she's
Hmm.
got the 4 questions. Is this true? Can you prove it's true? Because our story around the experience is what we make up based on all our previous experiences. So at the end of the day, this conversation he was having was, you got hit by a truck. Everything that you made up after that is the story.
Yeah.
Like you didn't almost die, you're here.
Yeah.
And we do that with our money, particularly because we have all the stories that we downloaded from all of our imprints from our family and our friends growing up. And then we perpetuate the story. So you're right that there are experiences out there, but we still get to create the story around it. So I agree with you 100%.
We can create, yeah, and I love, I don't know if since you went to spring, what was it?
Life Spring,
Life Spring,
Life Spring.
Landmark, I think is
The
related
same
in
thing.
some way.
The guy was a shoot off from that. Yeah.
Yeah, Erner Werhart or whatever his name
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
So that, what happened? What's the story you're making up about it? I mean,
Right.
it's just like that, just if people could get that one
Exactly.
concept, everything would change.
It
Um,
would. It would. Yeah,
it
absolutely.
really would. So I love that radical responsibility, because it's what you need to understand in order to, if you want to stay stuck, in the life you have, and you want to feel bad every day and you want to keep replaying the past, okay. You
Yep.
get to do that.
You
But,
get to do that. That's right.
um, so, this has been such an enlightening conversation. There's so many other questions that I really have for you, but it's we've been going on for a little while now, and this is just the conversation I love having. So let's talk about, what you would have our listeners do next, in order to get on to this path of just becoming their own inner billionaire and to be able to create. Because, I mean, you and I are on the same page about this. I mean, you really can have it all. You can have
Yeah.
anything that you want. You do have to take ownership for your life, and you do have to heal, the feelings that you have in your body, all of that. So, let's talk about what you have a divine wealth activator that people can
Yeah.
use. Talk a little bit about what that does and how people can get that.
Yeah, so the first thing they can do is go on Amazon and order the book because
Oh,
the
of
book is
course.
transformational. The book is transformational, and I love it so much. And I tell people this all the time, that I love my own book, and I don't read many books that I go all the way through. And I just literally, it's just a love letter to myself, but it's just a training ground for people. And I call it a sacred doorway to soul aligned wealth. Because
Ooh.
really, it's about being aligned with your soul at this point. It isn't about getting more stuff. And this divine wealth activator is just an opportunity. And I don't like to use the word tool because that's very masculine. It implies work. I like to say things are in a toy box. So I have a toy called the Divine Wealth Activator that is for your listeners. There's a coupon code. You can a coupon code for wealth, and they can download it and get it for $1. And it's just, it really is. It's something really simple. It's got a little sharing of how to use it. It appears to be almost like an Excel spreadsheet, but it's not. It's got magic on it, and it will then begin to just open up to receiving, because that's where we are so limited, especially as women, is our receiving channel. So this is just an activation of that, and you do it. Even if you do it for 30 days, more is going to start to show up in a way that you don't even imagine would happen for you right now. So I would love to gift that to them. It's just $1, and use that wealth code and you will be set. And then, obviously I have lots of programs. You can go on my website. I just love supporting women, particularly. I have lots, not lots. I have a few men clients, but I really love the energy because men can use feminine energy as well, but women need to really activate that as well for themselves so that they can begin to see that they do not have to drive themselves to burnout, because that then takes a toll on your body. And that's what I see more than anything with women, is that they have burned themselves out to now they're actually sick, and it shows up
Mm.
in some really crazy ways. But that divine wealth activator is just, it's a simple little toy, if you will, that you can use that's going to start to expand your receiving channel.
I love it. It sounds fun, and it sounds definitely like something that I'll probably hop on there and grab that myself, grab a copy of your book, The Inner Billionaire. And you can get that by visiting
Okay.
thequeenofmagic.com.
Sorry. I'm sorry. You're right. It is.
Thequeenofmagic.com. And then the book is available on Amazon,
Amazon.
and that is the Inner Billionaire. And it sounds like one of those books. I have a book similar to that where people they will read it once and they'll do all the magical activations and things like that in there. But then, a year later, they'll come back to it and they'll read it again. And it's like
Yeah.
one of those classic type of books. That's what I get from that book.
Yeah. It's definitely, I didn't know that that's what was going to happen, but I've just finished a 12-week course on the book because that was the first thing that I wanted to do. And that is the response that I'm getting from everybody that's read it once. They're going to go read it again. And I never thought that I would put myself in the same sentence, but Napoleon Hill wrote the book Think and Grow Rich. And so many people read that book once a year or once
Yeah.
every 5 years. In other words, it's just on their reading list to refresh themselves. So I really feel that that's what this is going to be going forward, because it truly is. It is a magical book. I will say that. And I don't
Yeah.
say that about myself very often in a boastful way, but it is a blessing and it's beautiful.
No, I can tell that it is. And so you've definitely put together, some really special, unique gifts, between, the gift that you're sharing in your book, the gift that you're sharing with the Divine Wealth Activator and your courses and all the things. And, you have a very powerful message to share. And so that's why I have people like you on the show, because I like to introduce people to these powerful tools. Well, okay, I still,
Yeah, I know. I have to
it's
catch myself.
okay. But toys, playbooks, things, that help you to grow and become more and become all that you're meant for. So, thank you so much for blessing us with your presence today and your wisdom and your magic and everything that you've shared. And there's so much more to share. We just barely scratched the surface of everything that you are all about. But this was definitely a very enlightening show today. So thank you so much.
Thank you.